Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Corombos of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Happy Friday. Pull up the stool. We're glad you're here. It is the end of a very long week. Jim, yesterday, like you said, it felt like 9 days. That might even have been generous. We're brought to you today by NetSuite by Oracle, netsuite.com/martini. Much more on that a little bit later in the podcast. Good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today. And it is our final regular edition of the Three Martini Lunch for 2019. Starting Monday, we are going to have our special year-end awards. 6 different podcasts covering 18 different categories. The best, the most, the highest, the worst, all sorts of things. From rising political star to people fading into oblivion, underrated, overrated, best idea, worst idea, a scathing look at the media, and all wrapping up on New Year's Eve with our Person of the Year, Turncoat of the Year, and our predictions for 2020. So all of that to look forward to. But today, the usual format, we start with the good martini. And Jim, it's the martini that just keeps giving. We talked about this on Wednesday as the idea started percolating into the media. We talked about it even more yesterday after the impeachment vote, and we're talking about it again on Friday, that the House Democrats are in absolutely no rush to hand over these impeachment articles that absolutely could not wait, since our next election is in peril as long as Trump remains president. He's technically been impeached, but now we've got legal experts saying he's not actually impeached until the House delivers the articles of impeachment to the Senate. So we'll let that legal argument play out. In the meantime, Democrats may never hand over the articles of impeachment so long as Mitch McConnell doesn't agree to their demands about how the trial ought to proceed. The latest incarnation of this is James Clyburn. He is a member of the House Democratic leadership, congressman from South Carolina, talking with John Berman of CNN. This was actually on Thursday, but Jim, this exchange is amazing.
How long are you willing to wait?
As long as it takes. Even if he doesn't come around to commit into a fair trial, keep those articles here. So keep it as long as it takes. If you know, and he's told you what he's going to do, it's almost like let's give him a fair trial and hang him. I mean, it's the verse of that.
As long as it takes, are you willing to hold the articles indefinitely? If Mitch McConnell doesn't concede the points that you're asking him to, are you suggesting it's possible you will never transmit the articles of impeachment?
If it were me, yes, that's what I'm saying. I have no idea what the Speaker will do. But if you have a preordained outcome that's negative to your actions, why walk into it? I'd much rather not take that chance.
There is no preordained outcome in the House at all, Jim. So what do you make of the Democrats' hurry up and never mind approach here?
For starters, I've been on CNN's morning show way back when. They haven't had me on in a while. I hope I haven't said anything to offend them, but I may very well do that again. But anyway, I've been on with John Berman. John Berman's a really nice guy, and I think well of him. But if he's listening, John, my friend, my buddy, my pal, compadre, how did the words "hang him" not jump out at you in a conversation when a lawmaker is discussing the president of the United States? How to hang him? How does that not set off like big red sirens in your mind? Oh, he means metaphorically hang the president. Yeah, I hope so, right? But that certainly gets rid of the idea that this is some sort of angry mob coming after the president or something like that. One of our recurring jokes is, thank goodness it's Friday, Greg. Thank goodness it is Friday, because this is kind of the most perfectly surreal point to end the week and perhaps to end the year, in which House Democrats are really convinced that if they never send over these impeachment articles, that somehow McConnell and Trump will eventually beg them to start bringing them over. I think it's this utterly bizarre. I believe the next move is they will hold their breath until the Senate decides to change the rules or something. You begin to wonder about lawmakers operating in a bubble, right? Where they, most of the people they interact with are either working for them as staff or asking them for a favor. People come into their office and want something. So they very rarely hear from anybody who doesn't owe them anything or who doesn't need anything from them or who isn't in fear of getting fired by them. So you hear a lot of, "That's a great idea, boss." "Yes, boss, it's a wonderful idea." Is there no one around the House Democratic leadership who say, guys, this is not going to work? Mitch McConnell is not going to say, oh, okay, I'll change the rules the way you want. I figured maybe this would be like a 24-hour idea that would, float through their heads, and maybe they might even go through a pro forma, go through the motions to show their grassroots that they tried. Greg, it sounds like they're digging in here.
Well, yeah, they left town, and they're not coming back till next year, so it's at least hanging out there for a few more weeks.
Yeah, even more. I mean, the message from Nancy Pelosi right before we started taping is the president is a menace to the Constitution. He must be stopped at all costs, and he must be stopped as quickly as possible. Also, we invite the president to give his State of the Union address to the House in February 4th.
Yes.
We got to get rid of, but he's going to be around for a while. I suppose she has to do that, but talk about stepping on their own message here. And, it's one of those things where you begin to realize they really haven't thought this through step by step. They just got here, and maybe they didn't think they'd have the votes or something like that. And they've just suddenly realized, oh, wait, the Senate's going to acquit this guy. What do? We're not going to hand it over to you, which, oh, by the way, in the eyes of constitutional scholars and legal scholars, until the articles get transferred, it's not actually like officially or legally, he's not considered impeached. And boy, if you don't think Trump is going to be beating that drum for a long time, please let them keep going with this. Please let them dig into let them keep digging this hole until they break through all the way to China.
Now, those defending Jim Clyburn say the point he was trying to make with the hang him comment is when you say we'll give him a fair trial and hang him, this is the opposite, that the Senate plans to give a fair trial and then acquit because so many people have supposedly made up their minds. But, of course, if, it had been the Clinton era and hang him or something like that with that impeachment, I'm sure that all the Democratic media folks would have completely understood what the point was being made there. Jim, I'm also curious to see your reaction to the fact that Adam Schiff now says he's got new information and now he's going after Mike Pence. So just in case he thought the insanity hadn't reached
But this is not partisan. This is not about undoing the 2016 election.
Yes.
Do you think when he goes by Nancy Pelosi, he starts humming Hail to the Chief?
Mike Pence, you didn't go to the inauguration. You must be impeached as well. Maybe that's the idea. I don't know. But, Jim, I don't know if they've looked at their polling numbers on this after they made this strong case that you've got to get rid of the president before the election ramps up because he's corrupting the election. But this strategy certainly does not mesh with that message. But maybe they haven't done their polling yet.
If we don't impeach the president and remove him from office, he will cheat to stay in office. And then they go to their fundraiser in the evening. We are going to win in 2020. We are confident of it. We know we're going to win. Well, wait a second. More contradictions there. But hey, no, look, they're just doing the fundraising. Who cares?
Yes, exactly. They might know their numbers, but if you don't know your numbers at your business, you've got some trouble. The problem many growing businesses have, and that keeps you from knowing your numbers potentially, is that hodgepodge of business systems. New business owners, and sometimes existing business owners for quite a while, have one system for accounting, another for sales, another for inventory, and so on and so on. It's just a big, inefficient mess, taking up too much time and too many resources, and that can only hurt the bottom line.
Introducing NetSuite by Oracle, the business management software that handles every aspect of your business in an easy-to-use cloud platform, giving you the visibility and control that you need to grow. With NetSuite, you save time, money, unneeded headaches by managing sales, finance, and accounting, orders, and human resources instantly, right from your desktop or phone. That's why NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system.
And thousands of the best-known brands and fastest-growing companies are using NetSuite to manage their business, and it's available to you. You'll learn how to optimize your processes, drive operational excellence, sell across more channels, and a whole lot more. And if that's not enough, NetSuite is also offering you valuable insights on your business with a free guide, 7 key strategies to grow your profits. It's all at netsuite.com/martini. That's netsuite.com/martini to download your free guide, 7 key strategies to grow your profits. Again, netsuite.com/martini. Jim, I can't think of anything that's an indication that we all need a break, hosts and listeners alike, than a Democratic debate the same week as we go through impeachment. But nonetheless, that's where we were on Thursday night. It was at Loyola Marymount University because, sadly, the strike ended there and the candidates actually showed up, and we had a 2.5-hour debate last night, which we definitely didn't need, but we got it anyway. So 7 candidates on stage this time instead of 10, and I think we got some more direct exchanges as a result of that, but I'll wait for your analysis on that. Our bad martini officially is Joe Biden. He's getting a lot of praise for not mangling himself to the extent that he has in previous debates. He seemed to be on point, defended himself on Afghanistan, for example. I'll let folks decide how well he defended himself on Afghanistan. But here's the bad martini. Tim Alberta, National Review alum, who's now with Politico and is one of the panelists, asking actually challenging questions to Democrats, which is a change. He asked Joe Biden about his position on energy policy and moving towards green energy and the impact that'll actually have on our economy and real people. Here's that exchange.
Vice President Biden, I'd like to ask you, 3 consecutive American presidents have enjoyed stints of explosive economic growth due to a boom in oil and natural gas production. As president, would you be willing to sacrifice some of that growth, even knowing potentially that it could displace thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of blue-collar workers in the interest of transitioning to that greener economy?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
And then he goes on to explain that because in the green economy, there'll be lots and lots of jobs doing other things in the energy sector.
We have an opportunity to put 550,000 charging stations so that we own the electrical vehicle market, creating millions of jobs for people installing them, as well as making sure that we own the electric vehicle market. There's so many things we can do.
Jim, it reminds me of this moment from the 2016 campaign.
I'm the only candidate which has a policy about how to bring economic opportunity using clean, renewable energy as the key into coal country. Because we're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. Right, Tim? And we're going to make it clear that we don't want to forget those people.
So, Jim, I don't think Biden understands, just like Hillary doesn't understand, how disgustingly condescending it is when politicians say, yeah, we're going to take away your job, we're going to kill your industry, but don't worry, we'll take care of you with something else.
We are going to save the planet by killing your job.
Pretty much.
Good luck, everybody, being thrilled about that. So the first thing that kind of comes to mind, I suppose if you are a gas station attendant and they decide to shut down the Texaco station because we've decided to, make oil and gas no longer the as important in our energy diet, so to speak, and we're going to put it more towards solar and wind. You're going to work at an electric car charging station instead of a gas station. All right, I guess, all you have to do is sit there behind the glass and not get robbed. There aren't a lot, other than New Jersey, they don't have full service stations in most places. But if you're a geologist and your job is to go out and look for places where there's probably going to be good reservoirs of natural gas or oil or for fracking and stuff like that, I'm not so sure. Well, don't worry. There's good news. The solar panel factory is hiring. I don't know if everyone's job skills will necessarily transfer from one part of the energy sector in the energy economy to another. And it's just kind of it seems very Washington politician to say, oh, don't worry, you'll find another job. You can find any kind of job. They're fun. The energy industry, all this stuff is kind of the same. Solar, wind, it involves plugging stuff in. Don't worry, you're going to be fine. As for the overall performance of Biden, yeah, it was a better performance of Biden. You listen to some of the praise afterwards, Greg. There was he spoke in a lot more complete sentences tonight. Perhaps I shouldn't make fun of him for that. He remained upright in a vertical position for the entirety of the 2 hours and 20 to 30 minutes. By the way, 2 hours and 20 to 30 minutes of a debate with 7 candidates. I don't like these debates. And the irony is, at first I was like, okay, it's too many candidates, right? That's the problem. You can't have a good debate with 10 candidates on stage. We're finally going to have 7, and it'll be better. And it wasn't that much better. And so, okay, maybe it really wasn't the problem. Okay, I still think having 10 candidates on stage is a bad idea. But you only had 7, and you ended up with the same kind of whatever questions got asked. And I thought the moderators had a much better night. I thought our old friend Tim Alberta was very good. Could have done without Judy Woodruff mixing up Andrew Yang and Tom Steyer. Greg, we've all been there. They look so similar. I shouldn't do that because we were taping an editor's podcast yesterday, and I'm pretty sure I called Rich Lowry Greg at least once. Could have been 3 or 4 times. Of course, this is what happens when I do a bunch of podcasts all in one day. But anyway, so the questions were fine. The answers were almost all, you've asked about this topic. I have nothing specific about that question that I'd like to say, but let me give you this chunk of my stump speech that is loosely tied to this topic, and we will build a better America. Nobody answered the questions. And there's not really huge differences amongst these candidates on policy. So you don't end up, a little bit on Medicare for All. And eventually, like, an hour and 20 minutes, they got into it. But it got into the wine cave, and Amy Klobuchar felt the need to tell us she'd been to the wind cave in South Dakota. And suddenly it turned into a travelogue. And I just, hour and 20 minutes of it were really boring. A little bit of flare up. And then, of course, Amy Klobuchar had to play the Cory Booker role. You know what that is, right, Greg?
Can't we just all get along?
Exactly. Why are we sitting here arguing there? Because it's a Democratic presidential debate. What do you think? What do you think? Is a tea party?
Well, let's get to our crazy martini now, and you've previewed it well, and that's the most inane parts of the debate, which is not easy to find, the most inane, because there's many of those moments in a Democratic presidential debate. But a couple of dust-ups here that I think are most significant. First of all, you've got the wine caves, which you mentioned, and that was because Pete Buttigieg held a fundraiser in a wine cave. Elizabeth Warren didn't like that. Pete Buttigieg didn't like getting called out on it.
The mayor just recently had a fundraiser that was held in a wine cave full of crystals and served $900 a bottle wine. Billionaires in wine caves should not pick the next president of the United States.
Mr. Mayor, your response. According to Forbes magazine, I am literally the only person on this stage who's not a millionaire or a billionaire. So if this is important, this is the problem with issuing purity tests you cannot yourself pass.
So they went at it for a while. I find it fascinating that people applaud by someone telling them they're the poorest candidate, but apparently that means they're somehow not beholden. Jim, then there's also the selfie issue. Elizabeth Warren talking about that. She's closing in on 100,000 selfies with voters. Here's what she said to the last question, which was my least favorite, where Judy Woodruff asked, what would you like to ask forgiveness for or give a gift this holiday season to another candidate?
I know that sometimes I get really worked up. And sometimes I get a little hot. I don't really mean to. What happens is when you do 100,000 selfies with people, you hear enough stories about people who are really down to their last moments.
And so you got a lot of feminists out there, Jim, since both Warren and Klobuchar apologized basically for getting fired up or even emotional at times over issues that somehow they're held to a different standard. The big dust up over this is that they're not actually selfies and someone else is taking the picture than the people in the pictures. But what do you make of the fact that selfies in wine caves are the big takeaways from last night?
Well, I thought about it, and at first I was like, why is Warren doing it? But I suddenly realized, okay, at the absolute kind of crux of the Elizabeth Warren philosophy is that there is nothing good that comes from a billionaire in a cave. And this is because she's like Bane taking over Gotham City, targeting the rich and the uprising and making people live in this great, anger of class warfare and all that kind of stuff. She's always had a beef against Bruce Wayne, and that explains why she doesn't like to see billionaires getting together in a cave. One of them will turn out to be Batman. First of all, you go back to Elizabeth Warren's Senate campaign. She held high-dollar fundraisers just like everybody else. She transferred a big old pile of money from rich donors from the Senate campaign to her presidential campaign. Don't let her fool you. I've never hung out with millionaires and billionaires. Never mind, what's her net worth? Who do you think she was the cooperating witness in all those civil cases for? Okay. By the way, she made like $900,000 from Harvard over a 2-year span. So just stop telling us how you're, part of the proletariat and, all that kind of stuff. Second of all, I think Buttigieg, since apparently I've been told numerous times that Buttigieg is wrong, even though people are holding up signs saying boot edge. He counterpunched pretty well. I think her hypocrisy on this is kind of intolerable. And I'm struck by the fact that one of Elizabeth Warren's, hey, I can handle this. I am tough. I am strong. I am ready for the presidency. Is that she keeps saying, well, I did 100,000 selfies. Greg, what's a selfie?
A selfie is when you hold the camera and take a picture of yourself and possibly someone else.
Right? So she didn't hold the camera for all 100 of those. What she did is she stood online with a whole bunch of people and she posed for pictures.
Yes.
Her testimony about her endless endurance and energy is that she posed for pictures for a really long time. There are a lot of supermodels who did the same thing, Greg.
Melania 2020.
She warned us she was hot, and supermodels are hot too. So, but look, it's a tough question from Judy Woodruff. It's a very basically it's like, what do you have to apologize for? And I guess, we've seen variations of this at previous debates, and I'm fairly certain. I think it was Obama used to say, I don't know whether he said that he was, what's your worst trait? And he would point out that he smokes, he's trying to quit or something like that. Or he might say something like, I take it out on my staff sometimes when I'm having a bad day. And Hillary Clinton would give I think my flaw is I care too much. Like whenever they give you the job interview question, what is your greatest weakness? There's really not a lot of good answers. One of the few ones that I had passed along to me, and I pass along to you now, listeners. What is your weakness? You say, well, look, I can meet deadlines, but I like to think of myself as a craftsman. So if you give me 2 hours to complete a job, I will take the 2 hours. Give me 2 days. I'm not great at turning stuff in early if that matters to you. Or if you need it turned in early, let me know because I like to take that's the most it sounds like a criticism, but really you're just talking about how great you are. And that's what all these answers turn out to be. And hers is, I get fired up because I think about all these people in this country who need help. She carries such a burden, Greg. Poor Elizabeth Warren.
She's a perfectionist. Yeah, that's another good one. I'm a perfectionist.
She hasn't cried like that since she saw somebody littering.
Yeah, I didn't see her pushing back on the fact that the big thing the media cared about was the lack of diversity on stage. She did not push back on that, which is probably pretty smart on her part. In the end, they still pretty much forgot about Andrew Yang and Tom Steyer, proportionally speaking. And then poor Andrew Yang got the gift question first and kind of fumbled it around. Didn't talk about universal basic income, but did want to give everybody his book. So I know that would be probably your answer as well.
Hold on a second. If hawking people your book is wrong, I don't want to be right.
There you go. Exactly.
They did point out that the two women on stage talked about their emotion, that they're too emotional. Every other guy on stage is like, buy my book. I know Woodruff, maybe in a one-on-one interview, they're going to do that. And of course, the worst one is to get that question firsthand, because I think, you give the real answer of, yeah, here's my real last flaw. And everyone else will say, I felt a little sorry for myself when I was rescuing those orphans from the burning building. And, I strained my back and I got down into self-pity. And I actually, I just care too much. Pretty insufferable. But hey, you know what? We don't have to deal with another one of these until January.
And that could not be a more wonderful sentence to hear as we exit the normal format for the year. But a quick reminder to everyone, of course, that our year-end specials with our Three Martini Lunch Awards, the most prestigious awards in political podcasting, begin on Monday. So don't miss those. And let us know, depending where you hear your podcasts, get in touch with us and let us know your choices for all these awards, too. Let's make it a lot of fun. So, Jim, let's pivot to that. In the meantime, have a much-deserved break over the weekend, and we'll talk to you Monday and back to regular shows in the new year.
Talk to you soon, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us. Don't forget to check out our friends over at NetSuite, netsuite.com/martini. And then the award shows start Monday on the Three Martini Lunch. See you then.